Hey, this is David. We have two monstrous floor jacks. Red monstrous floor jacks. If you know me, you know I like red monster. Anyway, we need to evaluate these two floor jacks. I told the customer I'd fix them up for him. Well, looks like one of the parts costs more than what I quoted them for. So we need to evaluate them, decide what's wrong, and go from there. Let me get you some closer footage. Maybe not. As you can see right here, the handle's broke. These pieces right here, I checked on ordering this part, but we have the other pieces in here. And so it's possible that we could take the broken pieces and weld them. Also, the pneumatic air motor has been removed and disassembled, and some of those pieces are missing. So we're going to have to deal with that issue as well. This one is a little more complete. The handle's okay, but also the pneumatic motor, you can raise and lower this lift with air. But this mechanism that does that has also been removed. So we're just checking them out, see what all they need. There's one main cylinder, and I suspect that the main cylinder might be bleeding down, so we're going to go ahead and put new seals in the main cylinder. These are parts from the pneumatic aspect of the lifts. I'm thinking we just need some new ones. So we're going to clean them up, put some seals in the cylinders, weld this handle over here, and then we'll do another evaluation before we try to return them to the customer. But these are massive 20-ton floor jacks for diesel tractor trailers. This is our raise and lower linkage. It is also broke. Let me show you the other one. It's intact. This is how it's supposed to look. This linkage that raises and lowers valve, raise and lower valve that you twist on the handle is intact on this unit. This is a picture of the hydraulic cylinder. It's dirty and it's massive. This is a close-up view of the handle that is broken. Where my two fingers are the other pieces of the handle. It's cast. I believe it's cast steel. I hope it's not aluminum. Neither one of them is easy to weld, but I think I can handle it. So we're going to weld the bracket for the handle back together and hope it stays strong. Massive large wheels on the front of the jack. So I haven't even got them out of the truck yet. I just want to get some pictures because I'm going to start disassembling the jacks, and I wanted to get pictures of them before we have them disassembled. We're going to disassemble some aspects of the jack and clean them up. This is the linkage that screws in the valve that for raise and lower. This is the other side of that linkage. Busted pretty good. Alright, we're trying to wrap up this 20-ton floor jack video, and I want to explain a few things. This air motor assembly and check valve. The check valve is one of my main problems with this jack not functioning. So hopefully we have the camera set right and you can see. Okay, right here is the check valve port. Anytime you're working on the hydraulics and you're taking some screws out that possibly could have springs underneath them, you need to be very careful. And of course, this is somewhat disassembled, but the cylinder is all the way collapsed, so it shouldn't have too much pressure on it. Plug has a seal on it. Here's the plug. The plug has a backup washer and an O-ring. Sorry you can't see it very good. Next we have a spring. Ball bearing. And another spring. Now these parts, these two springs in the ball bearing, they have to go back in the hole exactly the way they came out. When I got these jacks, they were not that way, and it's one of the reasons they weren't working. So I believe this first spring is going to go in a counter bore in the bottom of that hole, and it really needs to fit just right. So we're reassembling the check valve, and the spring is going back in the hole. It fell down in there. Okay, it feels like it's in there. The ball bearing's next, then the bigger spring, and then our plug with the seal on it, and it's supposed to have an O-ring and a backup ring. Hear a lot of noise in the background. That's my fan because it's very hot. It's supposed to get to 105 degrees. We're in Frisco, Texas, a suburb of Dallas, Texas. This check valve is very important. It's a part of the main function of the jack. And it was working. Disassemble it to show y'all. Okay. Now, I'll talk to you a little bit about the air motor assembly. This is one of the flanges. It has a cylinder, piston. I believe they also call this a piston, and it's got a big spring. But one of the important aspects of this air motor assembly is these parts I have in my hand. How it goes back together. This one biggest washer, I put 1 1/4 inch wrench on it. Nut, I said washer, I mean nut. It's just to secure the aluminum piece to this assembly here. The piston goes inside this hex shape. This hex piece right here, and this hex piece has got a seal on it. It's got a copper seal. Right here, copper seal. Now, when they're screwed together, what you're tightening against is that seal. This flange is still spinning, and this allows you to disassemble this and let this be not rotate. So what you would do is you would hold this piece and tighten this piece, and you want this very tight. And you're tightening against the seal. But this flange is still spinning. This flange has got the cylinder on it, along with the rest of the assembly. So we're going to loosen this nut first over here. And then we're going to turn this one and remove the assembly. So I got my 1¼ inch wrench. That's the one I just loosened up so this can spin. What I'm loosening up now is also a piece that goes air pump assembly here. We loosened this big nut so we could unscrew the other one. I'm not so sure y'all can see this that well, so I'm going to reposition the tripod. Air motor assembly. We loosen this nut, this big nut, so we can turn this. And there's a seal. There's a seal right here that when you install this air motor assembly, it's more like a pump, but they call it an air motor assembly. When you install it, this seal has to be significantly tight for it to work the way it's supposed to. So this piston with the O-rings, this is also referred to as a piston, is what's on the inside of here. So, and this is a swivel air hose. So I'm gonna attempt to disassemble it and reassemble it so you can know what's inside of it. Now there's a big spring in here, and it's going to hinder you from reassembling it. Not so much on the disassembly, but on the reassembly, that's where it's going to take some coordination to get it back together. I think my trick is just to get the one screw in there and tighten it up significantly, and then get the other three in there. But the first screw on the reassembly, that's the tough part. So this particular air motor assembly has 4 screws. I've seen some with 3 screws. Main cylinder type piece and 2 flanges on each end, a large spring, a couple of pistons. So the movement of this cylinder, the air is mainly pushing the piston one direction, and then the spring returns it. So the exhaust, okay, now we're to the exciting part, the last screw. I'm going to try to hold it together with these big paws while I take the screw out. Let's see if I can do it. Okay. Let's do this. Here's the spring. Here's the piston. And here's the other piece I want to call piston. Two O-rings. There's a significant amount of grease on it. Lubrication as it goes in and out of the cylinder. Okay, so we're going to put it back together. This piston is going back in here, and it has a little piece that fits into this area right here, and there's an O-ring on this flange. The other flange does not have an O-ring, and it's got some holes in it for the exhaust. So the piston is pushed by the air, and this big spring returns it the other direction, and it goes back and forth, and it's got some suction on this piston inside this little piece here, and so it sucks the oil and pushes the oil and makes the pump go up. So at this point I want to try to put this baby back together. The spring goes in here, and this piston, I lied, I'm trying to do it wrong. This piston goes on this spring. This is a pretty stout spring here too. It goes in there like so. And then this piece, I've got a hole right here that the stem of this piston goes into. I told myself to bring a clamp home from the shop, but I didn't do it. Yeah, I'm in the garage at the house, and I left my clamp at the shop. As you can see, spring is pretty stout. About everything I can do to squeeze it. And then this pushes on the big plastic plunger type piston thing. is not necessarily the way I would suggest to do it, but I'm going to get this thing back together. Fast forward some of this. Not the easiest thing. I don't even suggest you do that. I suggest you put it together with a clamp. air motor assembly. Okay, this hose swivels, and this piece I'm going to screw back in swivels, and then I'm going to tighten this large nut flange up when I reassemble it. So I'm going to put it back in the cylinder, tighten against this flange here, tighten it with this hex area, and then I'm going to tighten this. This last 1.25 inch nut is going to tighten it against the aluminum housing. This is a universal shaft for tightening and lowering, for tightening and untightening the raise and lower valve on this jack. Right now I have this little welding rod through there, and I'm going to have to decide if I want to put a screw in here or some type of riveting shaft that's upset on each end, or just a screw with a nut. Right now I'm leaning towards a screw and a nut to complete this universal shaft that raises and lowers this jack. It was broke. The handle was broke. I welded it. Right here are some of the welds. And here's some of the welds. So this handle was broke off, and this universal shaft was broke. Here's the floor jacks, are kind of dirty. We're just going to run by car wash. In Texas we say car wash. Here from up north you might say car wash. But dirty. We gotta clean them up. Now that we've washed these jacks, we're spraying WD-40 because we got moisture all over them. The WD-40 is going to help lubricate and get rid of the moisture.